covered the Boko Haram situation. I've spent about a week watching this and haven't commented much. And I went and did some research just to confirm my previous research. Because I have the knowledge. I've done the research, but there's so much research, it gets foggy. And I went, isn't Boko Haram protected and used to manipulate the Christian majority, animist majority, those two together, in Nigeria? Isn't Boko Haram in the north CIA connected? And I was sitting there this weekend, and then I was on the elliptical this morning at the gym watching MSNBC with the sound off, watching the closed captioning. And I went, look at this propaganda. They were saying lean forward. That's a classic Soviet communist term. Well, even predates that. It's Marxist. And then they showed George Washington, his hand out, and said lean forward, like George Washington is for Sovietism. That was like when Obama said Paul Revere would have loved the NSA, and the NSA is Paul Revere. I mean, just give me a break. But then I was sitting there watching Boko Haram with the sound off, and I went, that's staged. That's totally fake. And it's just like so much other stuff. I told you that abortion lady saying she loves getting abortions and holds a picture of the dead baby. I told you she was an actress. It came out she was an actress. I mean, the Boko Haram thing's fake. I'm going to explain why I think so. I don't have total proof, but I got a lot of evidence. And watch, it'll come out later. It's staged. But let me just say this. We know Boko Haram is working for Western intelligence agencies as a central Western or Western Central destabilization force, similar to the Kony 2012 movement using a dead boogeyman or bogey, Kony 2012, which we know was a government psyop that came out. Just like they had psyops to overthrow the Ukrainian government that were State Department funded on record. They would say in the videos, I'm grassroots. I'm filming this myself. No one told me to do it. And then it would end up, it was an actress funded publicly by the State Department. That's how dumb they think you are. So I knew Boko Haram or Boko Haram was a double, triple agent operation because the majority are Christian and animist. If you add those two groups together in Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, like 300 million people or something now, almost. I mean, it's incredible. And that they're being used as a pretext to basically militarize the central government that, again, is Christian/animist or earth worship group, and that they're playing that group off against them so that Nigeria will take Western aid and more IMF World Bank funding, and so they can be controlled by the globalists. It's just like they've brought AFRICOM the last few years into Africa. They took out Libya, put al-Qaeda in. The federal government admitted last week that, oh my gosh, it was a total screw-up taking out Gaddafi. It's horrible there now. No colleges. The women are having burqas put on their heads. And al-Qaeda is using it to launch attacks all over Africa. It was a perfect military base for clandestine al-Qaeda operations in Libya. That was the plan. Now the U.S. military and the French military and Ivory Coast and North Africa, everywhere else, can come in and invade, and they just say on the news it's to fight al-Qaeda, but even the president of the Ivory Coast earlier this year said, no, it is white mercenaries taking over the oil rigs, and then NATO shows up with France to kick them out and takes the nation's oil rigs. And the presidential palace blows up. You know, it was in a couple of those. Ivory Coast is one country. There's a couple others. Sierra Leone, you name it. I mean, it's so much of this is going on, I can't even keep track of it. And I know the countries and the players in Guyana and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just full-out war in Africa. And the governments even get it. These are pro-Western governments that are being double-crossed, by the way. These are Christians and tribalist, animist, you name it. They're not even Muslims. And they're in the news. You can pull it up, saying this is staged. They run the radical Muslims. So I wanted to go over some of this to explain what's happening. But basically, it's just a smokescreen. Yeah, there's the Global Research headline. CIA covert ops in Nigeria, fertile ground for U.S.-sponsored balkanization. And that's an article from, I guess, 2 days ago. So the folks at Global Research get it, too. They're very sophisticated. And, I mean, they should be. They're tied into the continent of Europe and the Russians. But the point is that is what's going on. And it's so complex on the surface, and it's complex in its depths, but it's also simple when you understand the overall program. Create chaos. They're not for the Muslims. They're not for the Christians. They're not for the animist. They are for destabilization, balkanization, crises, so the UN, NATO, and the globalists and AfriCon can come in then with Marshall plans for Europe, Marshall plans for Africa, Marshall plans for Pakistan. I mean, why did the U.S. government fly 44,000 Taliban al-Qaeda leaders and top military and al-Qaeda in the airlift of evil 2 months after the war started in 2001? Why did they fly them out in November, started in September? Why did they fly them out and give them weapons and gold? Well, it's untraceable gold to buy more weapons to then attack and destabilize and infiltrate the government of Pakistan. Just like they're attacking Syria using al-Qaeda and arming them in Iraq. And they don't care if al-Qaeda then attacks our troops or even our own mercenaries, I say ours, the globalists, in Iraq, because that's a reason to still be in Iraq. Killing is the business. Business is good. They get it coming and going, all directions. And I know you know this. This is what the British did with the Opium Wars in China. This is what the Norman did, which are really the British system. The Vikings took over France, and then they ran off and took over Germany, what was a group of Germanic states. And they've been doing this system where they, again, you'd have Norman British, Norman French. They'd have uprisings. They'd have a war. People would line up under the leader. And they would then kill off their populations, and those letters are public, going back 800 years ago, 500 years ago, right through to the last 100 years. And you had German kings running England who would then have wars with Germany. This is how they do it, ladies and gentlemen. And other people, I guess, just aren't smart enough to figure this out. And, of course, the Chinese engaged in balkanization. Kublai Khan engaged in it. The Huns engaged in it. The Japanese engaged in it, the samurai groups and shoguns. I mean, this is the system of control. And people had better figure it out or it's game over. But just here's one example today on this from Breitbart. Hillary Clinton protested designation of Boko Haram as terrorist group. While Secretary of State Hillary Clinton fought hard against officially designating the Islamicists of Boko Haram as a terror group, placing her in the camp of far leftist group MoveOn.org. They're not far left, folks. George Soros was a Nazi collaborator. He funds MoveOn. They have to cover every area of the chessboard. They have to be the liberal opposition, so no real opposition to war forms. It's like The Thing, the 1980s John Carpenter film. It plans to take over the whole world, ladies and gentlemen, and it will play the part of every group. That's why it keeps winning. Hillary Clinton is an ultra wicked, anti-human garbage, a psychopathic demon, a full-spectrum dominance worm. But right here, why do you think you saw Michelle Obama last week sickeningly saying, bring back her girls with a look? It gives them moral high ground. Look, we're fighting radical Islam. Look, we care about women's rights. Meanwhile, the group is globalist run. And they're going to use it to invade all of Africa to, quote, hunt down anybody they want, bypassing radical Muslims and going right at the Christians they kill all over Africa. Just like the UN did in '94 in Rwanda. That wasn't a UN screw up. I mean, and everybody goes, look at Michelle. She's so upset. This is sick. Boko Haram in the north is being given globalist aid to break that country in two and destabilize all of Western Africa. Just like Coney 2012 was meant to push for an invasion of Africa. It's just like, did you see that crazy looking guy saying, we want your women, they're going to be our slaves, ah, ha, ha. Out of central casting, guaranteed being directed. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like who's the guy that Jerry Bruckheimer, he did Black Hawk Down, the movie. Bruckheimer got caught running the Save It Private Lynch thing. That was fake. That came out in BBC. Totally fake with sat video shot and directed by him. Totally fake saving her. It's all come out. In fact, I bet Jerry Bruckheimer's involved. He might have been there directing that. That might have been directed in Langley, Virginia. Just like the leader of al-Qaeda, Adam Gadon, is the son of the former head of the ADL. And then the Wired magazine had a symposium, and they looked at the al-Qaeda logo next to the Pentagon logo, and it was uploaded in the same video layer. It has come out for years that this Boko Haram group that is wreaking havoc all over northern and central areas of Nigeria and Western Africa is a destabilization force of the globalists, of the mercenaries, of the big diamond companies, of the corrupt elements of the oil companies that want to have a pretext to have Africa in squalor and not stabilized. Same reason they brought down Libya and put al-Qaeda in. And now the news says, oh my gosh, al-Qaeda is operating inside of almost every African country. We've got to invade all of them. They've got a base in Libya. This is terrible. And no one in the media and the controlled press goes, why did we put al-Qaeda in charge there? Why did we give them heavy weapons? Why did we overthrow a guy that had been working with the West for 8 years, Muammar Gaddafi? Well, why is our government trying to overthrow Syria and using al-Qaeda? Because they want destabilization. Now, I know you know that. But enter people like Bill Maher. And coming up in the next segment, we're going to play a big clip of this with Dinesh D'Souza. And he's saying, no, all of Islam is bad, and then attaching it to Christianity. And, you know, religion's bad. Well, what about his religion of big government and his religion of eugenics and kill more people? I want to get the highway moving. I guess he would like Boko Haram. You have to understand, his God, Obama, his God, Hillary, his God, the New World Order, is literally funding and helping every radical jihad group out there except for Hezbollah, run by the Iranians. The only real terrorist group, according to the West, the group you could call a real independent Islamic Shiite group that really does blow stuff up and kill people, usually as a response. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying they use asymmetrical warfare. You want to call them terrorists? Go ahead. Is Iran. That's it. The Saudi Arabian variant, al-Qaeda, that's the main group, is run by the globalists. That's public knowledge for anyone who's not a moron. That's a pretty big revelation, though, isn't it? And it's hanging out in plain view. And our military, God bless them, they made mistakes and followed orders that were wrong. But they're going, look, we're not going to follow al-Qaeda now. We're not going to be their Air Force, and we're not going to train al-Qaeda to overthrow all these countries, Egypt, Syria, you name it. We're not going to be part of this. So now the globalists have moved on to Ukraine for destabilization for all of Eastern Europe. But Bill Maher comes out, this will get him big brownie points with neocons and conservatives, and has said Islam is the problem, period. The issue is, though, while he's all high and mighty, literally the people he works for literally sock puppet al-Qaeda. And that doesn't absolve Saudi Arabia and radical Islam. It's a real group, a real threat. It's just that if al-Qaeda's the horses, the New World Order's the driver. And riding shotguns NATO on this stagecoach to hell. So here's a short clip of Bill Maher acting like he's against the radical Islamic threat or saying it's all Muslims, period. This will sell the police state domestically. They can then take our rights for this shadowy enemy. And he knows full well what he's doing.
This is like saying that all Muslims are guilty.
I'm not saying that.
We're not saying that. You're hearing that, but we're not saying that.
What you're saying is Islam is the problem.
Islam is the problem, correct. All religions are the problem, but especially this one.
Let me stop right there. You know, I kind of agree with you, religion, but not relationships with God. But you see, everything's a religion. People that are foodies are obsessed with food. People that are obsessed with tattoos worship tattoos. It's their idol. It's their golden calf. Fine. People that worship sex, hedonist, that's their religion. The globalists are anti-human eugenicists that study how to control and dumb down populations to make us the prey class. And he has said he's a eugenicist and wants death and wants abortion and thinks humans are crap and wants us dead so the world can be his. So, of course, he wants to sit there and push a police state and an invasion and destabilization of Africa while he acts high and mighty, just like Michelle Obama, bring home our girls, when their Secretary of State has been protecting this organization for 6 years, Boko Haram. That is on record. It was a controversy 5.5 years ago when she did it. But again, the average American just sees Hillary up there concerned and Michelle concerned, not knowing they're front people for the group literally behind this. Literally behind this. And they're going to use the Muslim threat, the radical Muslim threat, to make us all slaves. Well, you know what? I'm sick of it. Don't take my rights, period.